So picture this. It's the early 6th century, and we're looking at a fleet of wooden ships, but they are held together with iron nails.
Right, they're literally stitched together
Yeah.
with like coconut fiber ropes.
Yes, stitched together, which is wild.
Mm.
And they are launching across the Red Sea, right into the Arabian Peninsula, and they're carrying tens of thousands of warriors from the African highlands.
It's just a massive operation.
Exactly. And this isn't just some quick raid, it's a full-on amphibious assault by an African king, basically trying to stop a religious massacre. And, well, doing so triggers what historians call the Cold War of Antiquity.
I mean, that phrase alone is just incredible. The Cold War of Antiquity.
It really is. So welcome everyone to today's deep dive. We are digging into this amazing stack of notes and historical reflections all about the Kingdom of Aksum.
Yes, centered right in modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea.
Right. And flourishing mainly between the 1st and 5th centuries CE.
Mm.
And what's so cool about this deep dive is our mission today isn't just to list a bunch of dead kings.
Oh, no, not at all. The source material is so much more dynamic than that. It treats Aksum through this really unique, creative lens.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sources call Aksum this, I love this phrase, a remix artist of civilizations.
It's perfect, really. It shows how they are the ultimate blueprint for world building. They take abstract ideas like, imagination and identity, and they turn them into actual physical infrastructure.
Right, like if you're creative or building a business today, you want to know how to connect disparate systems, right? And that's exactly what Aksum did. They didn't just invent things in a vacuum.
No, they refined what was already out there. They synthesized.
Which is just such a practical framework for us today. But, okay, to really get how they pulled this off, we have to start with the ground they literally stood on.
Geography is destiny, as they say. And the sources point out this concept of the double advantage.
Double advantage, right. So what exactly was their physical reality?
Well, think about the northern Ethiopian and Eritrean highlands. The Tigray Plateau specifically. It's like 7,000 or 8,000 feet above sea level.
Which is pretty high up.
Very high, which means you don't have to deal with lowland malaria. The climate is nice and temperate, and you catch all those heavy summer monsoon rains.
Oh, wow. So it's basically a massive, super fertile agricultural zone.
Exactly. It's the perfect incubator for a civilization.
Yeah.
They could feed a huge, booming population.
Okay, but I mean, lots of ancient societies had good farmland
Right?
and mountains for defense.
Right, totally.
But they didn't all become these massive global superpowers.
Yeah.
So how do a bunch of highland farmers suddenly project power across oceans?
Well, that is the second half of the double advantage. The plateau wasn't isolated. It had this steep geographical funnel that dropped right down to the Red Sea coast.
Right, terminating at this major port city, Adulis.
Adulis, yes. So you pair those food-producing uplands with instant access to literally the most important maritime trade artery in the ancient world.
The Red Sea Superhighway.
Exactly. Connecting the Roman Empire, Arabia, and the Indian Ocean. So Aksum has the food to sustain tens of thousands of people and the port to move the highest value luxury goods everywhere.
I mean, it really reminds me of, like, modern tech platforms.
How so?
Well, they don't just build a product, they own the entire marketplace. It's like Chicago in the 19th century with the railroads. You control the intersection.
Oh, yeah, that's a great comparison.
So through Adulis, they are brokering exports from deep inside the African interior. We're talking ivory, gold, tortoiseshell, frankincense, myrrh.
And rhino horn, yeah.
Yeah.
And the imports are just as insane. Roman glassware, fine olive oil, wine.
Indian textiles, right?
Yep, Indian textiles, raw iron, steel. They're the ultimate middlemen.
But wait, here's my question.
Yeah.
Just sitting on a trade route doesn't automatically make you an empire.
True.
Like today, countries with lots of resources or shipping lanes often just get exploited or totally absorbed by bigger neighbors. And Rome and Sasanian Persia were the big heavyweights back then.
Massive heavyweights, yeah.
So why didn't Rome just march in and take Adulis? How did Aksum actually harness this geography instead of just getting overrun?
Well, the sources make a huge point of this. Aksum didn't just passively watch the ships sail by. They actively turned geography into power.
By doing what exactly?
But systematizing the whole exchange. They reached inland, organized the extraction of resources, and set up heavily militarized corridors.
So they secured the roads.
Exactly. They made sure the gold and ivory got from the interior up to the plateau and down the escarpment safely, Plus, they were aggressive diplomats.
Right, because if I'm a Roman merchant, braving monsoon winds, I want predictability.
You want to know the goods are there, the taxes are clear, and pirates aren't going to steal your cargo on the way back.
So Aksum basically built an infrastructure of trust. They reduced all that business friction in a really dangerous area.
Precisely. But if you're trading on that transcontinental scale, right, moving tons of ivory and Indian steel across dozens of cultures, you can't just barter.
Oh, right. You can't just negotiate a rhino horn for some olive oil every single time a boat shows up.
No, it would take forever. You need a universal language of value.
Which means we have to talk about money, the tech of trade. Because this is a staggering milestone for them.
It really is.
The sources highlight that Aksum was the first sub-Saharan African state to mint its own coins, starting in the late 3rd century under King Ezana.
And minting coins, I mean, that is a massive declaration of state capacity.
A huge flex.
Yeah, you need complex metallurgy for the purity, centralized authority for the dyes, and an economy big enough to actually need standardized money.
But what I found truly fascinating isn't just that they made the coins, it's how they designed them.
What's fascinating here is the sheer economic intelligence behind it.
Right, because the notes point out they were heavily calibrated to Roman wheat standards, and they were explicitly bilingual.
Gold for export, stamped in Greek.
Since Greek was the lingua franca, right?
Exactly.
Oh.
And the silver and copper for local use was stamped in the indigenous Guess script.
Which is Africa's only indigenous written script developed in antiquity, right? A super sophisticated Semitic language.
Yes, with its own unique alphabet.
Okay, but wait. If they are this mighty, independent, rising superpower, why bow to Rome's standards?
Yeah.
Doesn't stamping your premium gold in Greek and copying their weights make you look, I don't know, subservient?
Well, it only looks like subservience if you're looking at it through the lens of ego.
Okay.
But economically, it's genius. It's all about interoperability. Think about the friction of ancient trade.
Right. If an Aksumite coin weighs some random proprietary amount, the foreign merchant can't just accept it.
No, they have to bust out a scale, weigh every piece, argue over purity. It grinds commerce to a halt.
Oh, so by matching the Roman solidus, the standard gold coin,
Okay.
they made trade totally frictionless.
Exactly. A merchant from Alexandria knows exactly what that Aksum coin is worth the second they hold it. The source phrases this beautifully.
Oh, right. Aksum didn't invent money, but they made money speak to multiple worlds at once.
Exactly. King Ezana optimized for connection. He knew power was in the flow of trade, not in forcing a Greek sailor to learn gaze.
It's like the ancient equivalent of putting a USB-C port on your electronics.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
You aren't surrendering your brand. You're just making it infinitely easier for people to use your stuff.
Right.
And, for you listening right now, think about your own work.
Right. How are you communicating your value?
Yeah. Do you insist on your own proprietary language, your own jargon? Or do you adapt your communication so different audiences can seamlessly understand you, just like Aksum did with Greek and Ge'ez?
It's a brilliant lesson. But an economy alone can't hold an empire together.
No, you need a story. A shared identity. You have to tell your people who they are.
Which brings us to the architecture of public identity and law. And Aksum is so different from Rome or Han China here.
Right, because we don't have an Aksumite 12 tables or Justinian code. There's no sweeping philosophical written legal text.
No. They relied on what the sources call functional sovereignty.
Meaning they projected power physically, not through bureaucratic paperwork.
Yes. And the most visceral example of this is the monumental architecture in their capital city, the stele.
The stele, these towering, massive stone obelisks from the 3rd and 4th centuries.
And they aren't just big rocks. They are meticulously carved to look like multi-story buildings.
I saw pictures in the notes. They have false doors at the base with carved locks and rows of false windows going all the way up.
Separated by carved wooden crossbeams, yeah. The engineering is just staggering.
I mean, the great stele, which fell over, unfortunately, was over 100 feet long.
And weighed an estimated 500 tons.
500 tons.
Uh-huh.
Carved from solid syenite rock. Just think about quarrying that, moving it miles on wooden rollers and standing it upright.
Sheer human labor and state organization.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because that stele is just a massive architectural flex, right?
Right.
It's a way of saying, look, we organized thousands of laborers to stand this 500-ton skyscraper up. We're in charge. That's the physical projection of power.
But the ideological half is even wilder. The cosmic justification for the empire.
Oh, yeah. King Ezana in the 4th century.
Right. So before Ezana, Aksum is polytheistic. Their coins and monuments have South Arabian symbols, a crescent and a disk for moon and sun gods.
But then under Ezana, the entire state officially transitions to Christianity. They literally erase the old symbols from their coins.
And stamp the cross.
It's like a massive corporate rebrand, but with cosmic stakes.
Totally. And the story behind it is fascinating. It mostly centers on a Syrian Christian named Frumentius.
The shipwreck guy.
Yes, shipwrecked on the Red Sea coast, taken to the Aksumite court, and eventually becomes a trusted advisor.
And he tutors young Ezana before he becomes king. So this shipwrecked foreigner introduces Christian theology into the royal house.
And Ezana makes it state policy. They are one of the earliest states in the world to put the cross on their currency.
But the sources say this wasn't just like a private spiritual awakening.
No, it was political technology.
Political technology. Explain that.
Well, adopting Christianity was a geopolitical masterstroke. It aligned Aksum with the Byzantine Empire, the premier global superpower.
Ah, so it creates a massive soft alliance.
Exactly. They share trade networks, common enemies, and a sacred legitimacy. Ezana goes from being just some highland king to a recognized Christian monarch on the world stage.
Fusing royal authority and international diplomacy into one identity. And with that shared identity and all that economic power, they start projecting hard power outward.
They step onto the global chessboard, they push south and west, destroying the remnants of the ancient kingdom of Kush.
Right, cementing regional dominance. But their biggest, most audacious move happens later in the 6th century, under King Caleb.
Which brings us back to the wooden fleet we talked about at the start, the invasion of Himyar in modern-day Yemen.
A massive amphibious assault across the Red Sea, which is a logistical nightmare even today, let alone in the 6th century.
Truly, but the catalyst wasn't just blind expansion.
No, it was a very specific, volatile trigger. The Himyarite king, Yusuf Asar Yathar, who had converted to Judaism, started massacring the Christian population there.
Especially at a city called Najran.
Right. And since Aksum is the dominant Christian power, King Caleb sees this as a moral outrage and a challenge to his sphere of influence.
So he gathers the fleet, invades, defeats Yusuf, and installs a Christian client regime in Yemen.
Which means they now hold both shores of the Red Sea, total dominance of the world's most valuable maritime choke point.
Yes, they are projecting hard power deep into Arabia.
Well, wait, I have a question about the morality here. The sources say Ethiopian tradition remembers Caleb and Ezana as absolute heroes and saints.
Right, saviors of the persecuted.
While the Himyarite king is the villain. But look, they were also imperialists, right? They destroyed Kush, they conquered foreign lands. How do we reconcile the religious savior with the brutal conqueror?
Well, the sources actually warn against applying cartoon morality to this.
Cartoon morality.
Yeah, like simple heroes in white hats and villains in black hats. Did Caleb intervene to stop a massacre? Yes. Was it viewed as noble by his allies? Yes.
Right.
But did that same intervention conveniently secure absolute control over the most lucrative trade routes on the planet?
Making the Aksumite throne insanely rich. Also, yes.
Exactly. The motives are totally intertwined. In classical empires, trade, religion, and military force are all braided together.
You can't separate the savior from the strategist.
You really can't. But all that ambition carries massive risk. By pushing into Arabia, Caleb poked the bear.
The Sasanian Persian Empire.
Right. Persia wanted those Arabian trade routes, too. They saw Aksum in Yemen as massive overreach.
So they send their own military to support a rebellion and push Aksum out. This is the Cold War of antiquity, the sources mention.
A bitter proxy war over crucial territory.
And this is where Aksum finally hits its absolute ceiling, isn't it? They could dominate the Horn of Africa, but they just didn't have the logistical bandwidth to hold Arabian territory against a fully mobilized Persian empire.
Every empire finds its limits eventually. The supply lines stretch too far, the enemies get too organized.
So we talk a lot about these kings playing grand geopolitical chess. Caleb launching fleets, Ezana redefining the cosmos.
And Dubis minting gold.
Right. But all of this grand strategy rests on a foundation that history usually totally ignores.
The silent engine of the civilization.
The people whose faces are never stamped on a coin. Because Aksum wasn't built by a handful of royals.
No, it was built by thousands of unnamed farmers, herders, artisans, and transport workers.
The base layer of their world. While the capital was this bustling hub with diplomats and multi-story stelae, most of the population lived rural, agrarian lives.
Governed by the seasons, the monsoons, the harvest.
And the sources detail their diet too. Wheat, barley, and especially teff.
Teff, yes. The super resilient cereal grain.
Still used today to make injera flatbread. They also had massive cattle herds for food, leather, and plow labor.
Now imagine the logistical effort here. Think about the stonemasons in those cyanite quarries.
Sweltering in the dust, trying to crack a 500-ton monolith out of the bedrock.
Driving wooden wedges into the rock, soaking them with water until they expanded to break the stone.
It's unbelievable. Think of the artisans carving false locks into stone doors. The transport workers guiding ivory caravans down steep escarpments.
It's like looking at a glossy app interface versus the back-end code.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. We look up at the kings and the stele, the interface. But without the teff farmers and the masons, the back end, the whole thing crashes.
Right. And the source notes give a really powerful moral reading here. Acknowledging these laborers isn't just about empathy.
It's analytically vital.
Exactly. You can't understand the scale of Aksumite organization without them. Ezana didn't build an empire alone. He directed a vast, complex machine of human beings.
Executing flawlessly for generations. But of course, no machine runs forever without an update, or without the environment shifting beneath it.
Which brings us to the long sunset, the decline.
And this really surprised me, because people always want a dramatic apocalypse story for ancient empires.
Right, a barbarian at the gates, a city on fire.
But Aksum didn't have a Roman-style collapse. Why is it so hard for us to grasp this kind of slow mutation?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we often mistake decentralization for death.
Okay, what does that mean in Aksum's case?
From the 7th to the 10th centuries, Aksum underwent a gradual transformation due to 3 massive systemic shifts.
The first one being trade routes, right?
The biggest one, yes. In the 7th century, Islamic powers expand out of the Arabian Peninsula and completely rewire the geopolitical map.
So the global superhighway moves.
Exactly. The caliphates set up new networks, often focusing on the Persian Gulf or overland routes. The ships just stop docking at Adulis.
The coastal choke point dries up, they lose their middleman advantage.
The second factor is environmental. You have this massive population on the plateau for centuries. They need wood to bake bread, smelt iron, build stuff.
Meaning serious deforestation.
Deforestation leading to soil erosion. They basically strained their ecological carrying capacity.
And the third factor was the geopolitical fallout from Yemen.
Right, losing that foothold to Persia isolated them. They were cut off from the massive wealth of the maritime routes.
So the environment is degrading, the money evaporates, and their influence shrinks. What happens? Do they just vanish?
Power gracefully shifts inland, away from the coast, deeper into the rugged interior of the Ethiopian highlands.
The monumental state decentralizes.
But the civilization doesn't die. It mutated.
The cultural software survived.
Yes. The Ge'ez language, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, these foundational pillars endured and evolved into the medieval Ethiopian states like the Zagwe and Solomonic dynasties.
So it wasn't an extinction, it was an iteration. They adapted to a new reality.
And this idea of adapting and mutating brings us to, honestly, the most unique part of these source notes.
The modern philosophical framework, the Tommy lens.
Right. The author of these notes uses this subpersonality profile called Tommy to represent the creative impulse. World building, tinkering, embracing uncertainty.
And they describe Aksum as Tommy operating at a civilizational scale.
Because they synthesized. They took raw African resources, Roman currency standards, Byzantine theology, and an indigenous script, and built a completely unique, resilient system.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you want to be a world builder in your own career or creative life, look at Aksum.
Don't just invent random things. Connect fragments into systems.
Bridge your inner imagination with external audiences, just like they did with gaze and Greek coins.
And push into the borderlands. King Caleb sailing to Yemen is the ultimate expression of embracing uncertainty.
They accepted the risk of failure, and yes, eventually lost to Persia and the shifting trade routes. But they were strongest when operating in that unknown space.
The ultimate lesson isn't rise and fall. It's build, connect, adapt, lose some systems, and become something new. It's all about iteration.
Build, connect, adapt, become something new. What an incredible journey today. From the bustling port of Adulis to bilingual coins to multi-story stone stele.
Geopolitical clashes in Yemen and the philosophical blueprint of world building.
And remember, being well-informed isn't just about memorizing facts about King Ezana. It's about seeing these patterns of connectivity and refinement and applying them to your own life's work.
Exactly. The mechanics of connection haven't changed, just the mediums.
Speaking of mediums, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Aksum thrived because they controlled a physical choke point, the port of Adulis.
The intersection of physical trade.
Right. But today, physical geography matters a lot less. We have digital and informational choke points now.
Data is the new ivory and frankincense.
So ask yourself, where is the Adulis of the 21st century? What are the invisible trade routes of our digital age? And who are the new middlemen, quietly building modern empires by translating the data flowing between completely different worlds?
Identifying the choke point is always the first step to understanding who really holds the power.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Keep building, keep connecting, and we will catch you next time.